Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes how Poland is vying to steal Germany's crown as the industrial heartland of Europe. Rabat plots route past earthquake shock and tougher economic straits. Military briefing, the advance of Ukraine's Mosquito Navy. Persistent drought strains Morocco's economic prospects. Partisan media deepens Poland's political divide ahead of elections. How Poland is vying to steal Germany's crown as the industrial heartland of Europe. Telegraph. Poland is expanding its manufacturing might while Germany frets about competitiveness, with output per person in Poland surging 85% to $43,113 over the past decade, compared with a rise of just 46% in Germany. Germany's manufacturing industry has shrunk from 20.3% of economic output to 18.5% in the decade to 2022, whereas Poland saw its factory output grow from 16.7% of GDP to 17.7% over the same period. Industry has been a key part of Poland's growth story since the fall of communism, and ministers in Warsaw want the country to start making higher value items. They have launched a charm offensive to attract foreign cash in new and cutting-edge technologies. Rabat plots route past earthquake shock and tougher economic straits. Financial Times. Morocco's economy is expected to withstand the impact of a recent earthquake that killed approximately 3,000 people, due to its diversified sectors being located far from the affected area. King Mohammed VI has announced a $11.7 billion five-year reconstruction package to support those who lost homes and livelihoods in the worst affected areas. The plan is expected to aid 4.2 million people across the country. The economy was forecast to grow by 2.9% in 2023 prior to the earthquake. Although the earthquake's impact on growth and budget has yet to be assessed, Morocco has access to a $5 billion flexible credit line from the IMF. The country has suffered 5 consecutive years of drought, leading to increased wheat imports and job losses in rural areas. Morocco is also facing periodic protests against the high cost of living, due to rising prices. However, analysts believe that the country's diversified economy and counter-cyclical approach will help it withstand these challenges. Military briefing, the advance of Ukraine's Mosquito Navy. Financial Times. Ukraine's naval campaign against Russia's Black Sea Fleet has achieved significant success, according to military officials and analysts. Ukraine has managed to push back the Russian fleet, hit its bases in Crimea, and achieve a degree of success that has eluded its counteroffensive on land. The campaign has also brought the war to Russian-occupied Crimea for the first time since the invasion began. Ukraine's successes have been achieved with an essentially shipless navy, against the second-largest marine force in the world. The operations have embarrassed Moscow, emboldened Kiev, and furthered Ukraine's strategic goals of choking off Crimea and denying Russia control of the Black Sea. Ukraine's denial strategy at sea has been effective, as it only takes a few missile hits to deter a Russian military presence. However, it remains uncertain whether Ukraine's approach will be enough to defeat its more powerful naval adversary, which commands about 30 warships and 6 submarines. Persistent drought strains Morocco's economic prospects. Financial Times. Morocco is facing the consequences of climate change, with 5 consecutive years of drought and an era of water scarcity. Agricultural yields have suffered, impacting the economy and employment levels in the country. The government is taking action to mitigate the effects, including building new dams, recycling wastewater, and expanding desalination plants. However, rain-fed agriculture still represents 80% of cultivated land, and most cereal crops are grown using rainwater. The World Bank warns that drought could lead to migration from rural areas to cities, and estimates that up to 1.9 million people could move to urban areas by 2050 as a result of climate change. Partisan media deepens Poland's political divide ahead of elections. Financial Times. Poland's media landscape has become increasingly partisan ahead of this weekend's elections, with state-controlled outlets accused of acting as a mouthpiece for the ruling Law and Justice, PiS, party. Opposition leader Donald Tusk last month offered to stop instructing his candidates to stay away from journalists from such outlets, but this was interrupted by a reporter from TVP state television shouting a question about Tusk's alleged ties to Russia and Germany. Critics have compared TVP to the BBC being taken over by Breitbart and said that it is peddling Goebbelsian propaganda. Why the world has been footing the bill for Putin's war. Financial Times. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has entered a protracted phase, with Russia showing resilience to sanctions and continuing to fight. The Kremlin has spent an estimated $100 billion to $120 billion per year on the war, but this has not significantly impacted the economy due to increased revenue from Russian oil exports. However, if export revenues were to dip, Putin would face challenges in continuing the war while maintaining social spending. The article suggests that a prolonged standoff is likely, and unless transition arrangements are rethought, democracies will continue to pay for the wars waged against them by autocracies. Putin inflicts terrible shelling as Kiev warns of drone attacks. The Independent. Russian air attacks in the war with Ukraine have intensified, with one assault injuring a dozen people, including a baby, in the city of Kherson. The attack hit civilian infrastructure, damaging residential buildings, household facilities, cars, and gas pipelines. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces carried out 59 attacks on Kherson, including 19 instances of shelling. This comes just days after a missile attack on the village of Hroza in the Kharkiv region killed 52 people. Ukraine's Air Force has warned of a record number of Russian drone attacks on its soil this winter. The city of Kherson, which was taken by Ukraine in November last year, remains within firing range of the Russians. The assault on Kherson hit civilian infrastructure, including residential buildings, household facilities, and gas pipelines. Among those injured was a 27-year-old woman and her 9-month-old daughter. These attacks come as Ukraine gains ground in its counteroffensive near Bakhmut. The Ukrainian military has been fighting against Russian-backed separatists in the eastern Donbass region since 2014. The conflict has claimed the lives of over 14,000 people and displaced over 1.5 million. The intensification of air attacks and drone strikes by Russia further escalates the ongoing conflict and raises concerns about the safety and well-being of civilians in the affected areas. UN Security Council meets on Gaza-Israel, but fails to agree on statement. Al Jazeera. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session to discuss the ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza. The UNSC failed to reach a consensus on a joint statement as Russia and other members wanted a broader focus than just condemning Hamas. The US called on the Council to strongly condemn Hamas, but some members wanted the focus to be on ending the Israeli occupation. Israeli Ambassador Gilad Erdan showed graphic pictures of Israeli civilians being taken captive by Hamas and called on the international community to support Israel's right to self-defense. China expert Matt Pottinger, even with a weak economy, she is feeling emboldened. Financial Times. China's President Xi Jinping has been purging his allies in a move that is puzzling to observers. Experts suggest that this upheaval is a feature, not a bug, of Xi's rule, as he seeks to keep the party off balance and maintain his primacy. The centralization of power in Xi could lead to policy oscillations and miscalculations, which could have implications for China's response to the ongoing property crisis. Matt Pottinger, former Deputy National Security Advisor under Donald Trump, believes that understanding the Chinese leadership involves holding different ideas in mind simultaneously, as she dominates the political system but faces challenges from a stumbling economy and an increasingly discontent public. Videos show new details on how Hamas launched surprise assault on Israel. CNN. Armed militants from Gaza launched a surprise attack on Israel at dawn on Saturday, blasting holes in the border fence, killing an unknown number of Israeli soldiers and taking hostages, propaganda videos geolocated and authenticated by CNN show. Israeli soldiers at border posts appeared to have been largely caught by surprise by the assault, which was carried out using what appeared to be drones, rocket-propelled grenades, anti-tank guided missiles and assault weapons, the videos shared on social media by the Islamist militant group Hamas show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, we have covered a range of news stories that highlight the changing dynamics and challenges faced by different countries. From Poland's industrial growth to Morocco's resilience in the face of natural disasters, and from Ukraine's naval campaign to Russia's persistent aggression, the world is indeed a complex place. Add to that the deepening political divide in Poland and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, and we have quite a lot to unpack. Let's start with Poland. It seems that our neighbors to the east are vying to steal Germany's crown as the industrial heartland of Europe. With a significant increase in output per person over the past decade, Poland is expanding its manufacturing might. Ministers in Warsaw are now focused on attracting foreign investment in cutting-edge technologies. It's like they're saying, move over, Germany, we're ready to take the spotlight. Meanwhile, in Morocco, the country is facing the aftermath of a devastating earthquake and persistent drought. However, due to its diversified economy and counter-cyclical approach, Morocco is expected to withstand these challenges. The government is taking action to mitigate the effects of climate change, but it's a reminder that we all need to be prepared for the consequences of a changing climate. Now, let's talk about Ukraine. Despite being outmanned and outgunned, Ukraine's naval campaign against Russia's Black Sea Fleet has achieved significant success. Their Mosquito Navy has managed to push back the Russian fleet and bring the war to Russian-occupied Crimea. It's a David and Goliath story, and it shows that determination and strategic thinking can make a difference, even against a more powerful adversary. Speaking of Russia, it seems that Putin's war machine is being funded by the world. Despite sanctions and international pressure, Russia has been able to continue its aggression against Ukraine, thanks to increased revenue from oil exports. However, if things change on the economic front, Putin might face challenges in maintaining his military campaign. It's a reminder that autocracies can be resourceful, and democracies need to be prepared for the long haul. Moving to the Middle East, the conflict between Israel and Gaza continues to escalate. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency session, but failed to reach a consensus on a joint statement. The focus of the discussions ranged from condemning Hamas to ending the Israeli occupation. It's a reminder that finding a solution to this complex issue is not easy, and different perspectives need to be taken into account. Finally, let's not forget about China. President Xi Jinping is making significant changes within the party, purging his allies and centralizing power. This could have implications for China's response to the ongoing property crisis and its overall stability. Understanding the Chinese leadership requires holding different ideas in mind simultaneously, as she faces challenges from a stumbling economy and a discontent public. So, there you have it, my friends. The world is a fascinating place, full of challenges, conflicts, and opportunities. I hope you enjoyed our journey through these news stories. Now, it's your turn to share your thoughts. What do you make of these developments? Do you have any questions? Let's continue the discussion and explore the many dimensions of our interconnected world. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.